Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited tonight. I always get excited about talking live because it puts a little pressure on me to be more myself. But tonight, I get to talk to you with a gentleman that I am getting into his writing and even more into like his story that I'm starting to see through his writing. Mr. Kevin Bachar, how are you tonight, my friend?
Good. So are you Mr. Beard? Are you
I'm Matt.
Bud?
Yeah, Matt.
Are you,
I think I need to write that in my intro somewhere. I'm Matthew or Matt, whatever you want to call me.
yeah, no,
Beard
I
of
was like,
Darkness.
is it Matthew, Matt, Bod, Beard of Darkness, Mr. Beard of Darkness?
It's not the first time I've got that question, so I need to address it. It's definitely Matt. Yep. Anything like that. If you want to call me Baldy, that's fine too.
No, not at all. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Oh, good man. I'll tell you what. It's always so cool to me. There's a few things I love more than anything. There's culture. There's people at their most genuine, their character, their personality, and seeing that through the written word is something I never thought of. And now that I get to experience it, especially with guys like you, I think your prose is just right there. I really enjoy it.
Oh, thank you.
Um, absolutely. So I think you are a very special individual. So we're going to start this interview a little differently than I normally do.
I'm ready.
Would you kind of just go over who you are, what you do, and yeah, tell us anything about you and what you do that you would like to tell us? I know the answer, but the viewers are going to dig this.
Sure. So my name is Kevin Bachar. There's a good chance if you've watched TV over the last 30 some years or so, or if you watched National Geographic or Discovery Channel or PBS, you've seen my work. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I work in all sort of genres, adventure and history, but I specialize in natural history, wildlife. So I do stuff that you've seen on Shark Week or Shark Fest, but also stuff with PBS Nature. I filmed everything from vampire bats in caves to orcas out in the ocean to lions on the African plains. I actually worked at National Geographic for 10 years before forming my own company.
How does it feel? I've always watched orcas kind of, what is it called, a crest, or like they come out of the water. How does it? Are they just bigger than life?
Yeah, I mean they're probably my favorite animal. They are so intelligent. We did a film on them, and the scientists talked about, the one biologist, this wonderful woman, Ingrid Visser, talked about orca culture. Because,
wow.
Yeah, because the orcas all over the world are different. So the orcas off of Argentina, we filmed them. These are the ones that beach themselves to take the seals off the beach.
Wow.
And then we filmed orcas off of New Zealand, and they eat eagle rays. That's all they eat. And then the orcas off of Seattle, they eat the salmon. And the orcas off of South Africa eat something different. They recorded the sound that the orcas make, their language, their squeaks and squawks. And each of these orca pods, the ones off of Argentina and New Zealand and so forth, you could tell difference, almost like an accent, like it's different.
Wow.
And so what makes culture? Well, language makes culture. Where you live makes culture. What you eat makes culture. So there was this great sort of idea that there's orca cultures out there. So I'm
That's brilliant.
And love them.
I've known this about you, pretty shortly after we started talking, and I started thinking how many times something you've recorded put me to sleep at night, because I think watching nature documentaries is like the thing I'm most nerdy about. I would say that's my top. I get into the special they did with low light cameras.
Mm-hmm.
It's just incredible.
Yeah.
So I highly respect what you do, man, in bringing nature to those of us in modern day that maybe a little unfamiliar. Keeping that alive, keeping it important, it's very special, man. So would you tell me what a WGA, what that acronym stands for?
Sure. So in addition to my documentary work that I do, I also do the writing, and I'm in the WGA, which is the Writers Guild of America, which is a guild, a union of writers, and we most of the films you see, most of the TV shows you watch, the series you watch streaming, are done by writers who are in the WGA.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, I asked because, well, I could have just Googled it, but I wanted to hear from you, a guy that does this, and that makes a lot of sense. And I've heard of that before. Um, do they play a? How do you become a part of that? Is it something you started writing a long time ago, got experience and the credentials and that kind of thing?
Yeah, you. It's a pretty small group, and there are certain rules to be able to become a member. You have to work on certain shows. You have to certain films, and you have to earn a certain amount, and so forth, to become a member of the WGA. And like I said, when you watch these shows on any of your favorite streaming services, the writers on them are have to be from the WGA. You have to be within that union to work on those shows. And the WGA protects us. We went on strike last year. You might have seen that
Yeah.
all over
Yep.
news. You know, writers on strike. I walked the picket line in New York
Mm-hmm.
because, you know, as
I think
anybody,
you were doing the right thing, man.
yeah, we're trying to sort of like just look for fairness and stuff. Yeah, so if you're watching a movie, you're going to see a film, it's written by somebody in the WGA.
Real quick, guys. The green screen behind me is kind of doing this thing. I'm so sorry about that. I have a new place. Oh, it's almost done. I did a little DIY project with my grandfather-in-law, and he's the brains of the operation. Let's just put that out there. Yeah, and my wife will be able to work out there, and I'll be able to shoot in there. We won't have this, but I'm fascinated. So I just want to say thank you again for being here.
Thank you
What
for
would you? Yeah, of course, of course. I'm trying to piece together this question. What is the foundational moment for you as far as how far back you can see your passion for whether it was reading first, writing first? When did you know literature was going to be a part of your life in one way or the other?
Hey, that's a great question. So I'm a New York City kid. I was born and raised in Queens. I'm a product of public schools all my life.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in an apartment, so that sort of real inner city sort of vibe is what I am. And when I was growing up in Queens, it's it's asphalt, it's concrete, it's it's broken glass,
Sure.
it, it's not where you are in Ohio or where everybody else is. And reading took me away to places. I mean, it's sort of like I was able to go places through a book that I couldn't go anywhere. So I love reading. Like when I was a kid, and I don't know if they do this now. You used to get the Scholastic, and you used to be able to pick out books and buy books. And
Yeah.
my parents would give me a budget, and I could get whatever 3 books, and I would get them and tear through them, and I hung out at the library. I guess I was a bit of a nerd. I mean, I love basketball, playing sports, all that stuff, but I loved also going to the library, and I loved movies. I mean, I loved movies as a kid. And so there was always that combination that had me interested in sort of writing and films.
When you would watch film, so what's this era where was it before like the VHS? Was it there's a reason I'm asking. Was it before VHS or kind of during that time?
No, it was before VHS. I'm an old timer,
No. I purely asked for
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I was the kind of kid that was so in love with movies or music. It went back and forth that I would go out and buy a movie I'd seen 15,000 times just so I had that like if I had a bad day, I knew that it was going to be on the shelf for me to pick up. So was it film that type of intimate for you where you found a lot of joy and your bad days could be made better through film?
Yeah, no, it's sort of like when you watch a film and a favorite film, it always picks you up.
Oh,
Any film, it's sort of like it. Look, when a film or a book is working right, it's an out of body experience. You aren't in your room anymore watching the film. When you're reading a book that's really great, you're not in your room reading a book anymore. You're there. You're in those pages. Same thing with a film. You're there. You're on Alderaan. You're you're on Tatooine. You're there. You're on that boat in Jaws with Quint and so
oh
forth.
yes,
Uh,
great movie.
and so yeah, films would definitely take me out of that Queens. And if I didn't grow up in the greatest neighborhood, and there was trouble going out on the streets, I was taken out away from that. I was in the jungles or wherever else that film was taking place. I was James Bond.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I feel like you got such a better James Bond experience than I did.
Ha!
I think. Okay, so when I was in fifth grade, that's when 9/11 happened.
Mhm.
And I see a trend after that of, I wish it would have been a little bit of books too. I didn't start reading until I was almost 30 years old, and I'm
Right.
34 this year.
Mhm.
I have not, it's good and bad. So there's some good. I haven't read a lot of the foundational, amazing books that I hear about all the time. A lot of them I still have to read. But also, I feel as if my imagination could have a little bit of work, and I think it'll get there. Or understanding some authors that may have a little bit of a complex prose. So there's pros and cons, but hearing those experiences from somebody like you who had that important part as a young man, that's incredible. To take, especially those bad days, man. That's all I remember is those bad days. I knew I had that creative outlet.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Um,
look, to go back to what you were talking about, like, you weren't always a reader, but now you're reading now. And what should I read? And so I know. Look, I think people should read whatever the hell they want to read.
yes,
It's sort of like just what makes you happy. Don't feel you have to read this because, oh, this is a classic and this is what everybody's read and stuff like that. It's sort of like, look, man, Shakespeare, yeah, but I can't read Shakespeare.
it's hard.
It's so hard for me to follow that. It's sort of like I think it's because I'm a New Yorker and I talk like this and dems and those and these and summer and it just
I'm so
Shakespeare is too much of a leap. But that's what I mean. So Shakespeare doesn't work for me. Well, what works for me? What's going to make me happy? What's something else that's like Shakespeare but modern Shakespeare or so forth? I think just read what you want. What makes you happy?
that is a message I think so many people, especially kind of in this kind of the booktube thing, there's these books that kind of get special treatment. And I'm very much the kind of guy who is like, everybody's talking about this book, so I'm going to try a different book. I don't know why my brain does that, but it does.
Yeah.
And in doing so, I know that I have a potentially great book to come back to if I end up liking it. But also, I can diversify the pool, if you will. And that's really why I fell in love with talking to indie self-pub writers. It honestly speaks to me in the most passionate way. When you're with a publisher, uh, I'm not saying you're a different person as an author, or if you know what I mean, but the processes are different. Um, the liability on the author is different. The amount of knowledge you have to have based on the lots of different jobs you have to publish a book is different. So I like to kind of highlight that.
Well, thank you, Matt. I mean, people like you who sort of try to highlight the indie authors and give us a platform. You guys are amazing. And the thing is, you say indie author, and it might feel like, oh, well, that means they weren't good enough to be
Never.
published by one of the big five, and oh, I'm going to be getting a book that's not as good as that. Look, for me, indie publishing. And I'm in the WGA. I'm a screenwriter. I've won Emmy awards.
You've
Uh,
got the yeah.
I think I might have been able to find, a publisher to publish me with my words and so forth. But for me, the indie thing works right now because I'm writing at such a speed, and I'm releasing a book every 3 months, every 4
You're a
months.
gangster at that. You are.
Yeah, and if I was more traditional, maybe that wouldn't be, something that I could do. And I enjoy right now publishing at that speed. Now, it's not to say I would never go traditional publishing, and things could change, or I could be a hybrid. But for me, it's working because of the way I write and the way I like to put my words out there for people.
Yeah. So as far as you wear many hats. So your filmmaking, documentary making, screenwriting career, is that still something you do and have a busy schedule with?
Yeah, look, I'm still doing all of them. Still working on the documentary films. I'm still screenwriter. So I'm having meetings over the next 2 weeks on a number of my projects. You can watch my film called The Inhabitant, which was released
Mhm.
in Lionsgate a couple of years ago. It's on Hulu. It's on Amazon. It's on Apple Plus.
That's
Look for
so
The
cool.
Inhabitant. You can see that it's a horror film, but as they say, it's an elevated horror film. Uh, and I'm writing books. I just had a new book called The Visitor that came out just on Friday. So, I, look, I probably have a very high level of attention deficit disorder. It's sort of, but I make it work for me. It's
Welcome to the club, brother.
yeah. I mean, I think I had it when I was a kid, but it wasn't diagnosed then. But it
Hmm.
was sort of like, my mother screaming at me, like, and my brother, like, get out of the house now, or I'm going to kill you both. Because
Yeah.
we were just bouncing off the walls.
Back, man. Oh, you just took a window into my life. I have to get. So the reason I asked, by the way, about your schedule is, I think what, and tell me if I'm wrong. Being an author who has control of all parts of the publishing of it allows you to have your schedule, and also fit this around your busy schedule as you like.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
No, that's exactly it. You're more in control. And I'm able to fit it in terms of the screenwriting. I'm able to fit it in within the documentary filmmaking. If I have to put it aside, I can put it aside. I'm much more in control of it right now because I am self-publishing, indie publishing, going that route. You're spot on with that. That's exactly part of why that works for me, because I'm not just solely writing novels. I am still writing the screenplays and working on those projects as well.
So tell us how long ago you started writing seriously, I guess I would say, to where you wanted to publish the work. Even maybe a little bit before. Were there stepping stones? Did you
Yeah,
have
sure.
books that were started as that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, again, I've been a documentary filmmaker for many years, and
Hmm.
I would write my documentaries, which is a very different style of writing. It's factual based. It's sort of it's really sort of sparse because you want to let the characters that you're interviewing and filming tell the story. So,
Mm.
but I wrote my documentaries, and then what happened was about 10 years ago. I hit a kind of a slow patch with the documentary side of my life. And instead of just sort of like, twiddling my thumbs and doing nothing, I was sort of like, you know what? You always thought about screenwriting. You have some time here. Why don't you download the screenwriting software and try screenwriting? You have some ideas. You probably do it. Everybody does it. You write down an idea and put it in your pocket, or you put it on the back file of your computers, going like, oh, this might work. I might want to write something about this one day. So I had a bunch of those, and I started writing screenplays. And uh, uh, lo and behold, I entered some contest and reached out to people and so forth, and ended up winning a few contests, some big contests
Wow.
within the screenwriting world. And before you knew it, some people were optioning my work. An option is when a producer contacts you and pays you a certain fee to be able to try to produce your work over a period of time. So they'll pay you some money, and they have your script for like 6 months or a year. And in that time, they paid for that right to try to get that produced. So I had a couple of projects optioned, and then The Inhabitant got bought and got made. That's the screenplay I wrote, the horror film we were just talking about.
Mm.
And that happened, and that was sort of the step from documentary to sort of more serious writing, more sort of like prose type writing.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, even though screenwriting is very different from prose, very different from novels and so forth, it's still in that more in that realm than documentary filmmaking.
Yeah. Oh man, was it just kind of like a pinch me moment? Taking that chance. Downloading the software, just kind of following what was speaking to you, and then all of these wonderful things started happening.
Yeah, you look, there were a lot of points where wonderful things weren't happening, where people wouldn't return my call, or people would
Mm.
say we don't like your script, or I'd entered in a contest it wouldn't do. The thing is, and again, you know this, you're successful, is sort of look, not life is like 90% failure.
Oh, dude.
and
Oh,
and it's knocking you down, and it just sort of 10% is the success, and getting up and punching through. And so uh I would get knocked down, and I would just like that old song, I get knocked down, I get up
you gotta
again.
get
Sort
back
of
up. Oh, I
that,
love that, man. I
and
absolutely.
those are the people who are successful. I just saw something where um sort of psychologists looked at what made people successful. What was it? Was it schooling? Was it education? Was it family connections, or this or that? And the number one thing was what they called grit.
Oh,
Your stick to itiveness, your ability to get back up after getting knocked down. You're
oh,
putting in the time and the effort, getting there before other people. Waking up at 5, so you're working by 5:15 and not stopping, and just keep pushing through every failure. That's great, and that was
oh.
what psychologists had determined was one of the key reasons for successful people.
Look, yeah, it's nighttime, and I'm getting pumped up thinking about it. Those times in especially, I have a lot of those dark times in my life where statistically I probably shouldn't be here. Went through some dark times, but what that does is, first, it tells me I'm here for a reason because of my beliefs. Um, and second, it helps to have gone through a really tough time, like we all have, and look back at that and say, what I'm going through right at this moment, it kind of sucks, but I got through that. And to push forward through that, man, and to have that success, that is super inspiring. I dig it, and I super thankful that you went into that, man.
Yeah, no worries.
So the Visitor's definitely not your first book. What did you start with your publishing? What was
Yeah,
the book that you started with?
yeah. So, continuing that journey on your early
Hmm.
question. So from screenwriting, so I was doing that, and then about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, if you were paying attention, there were a number of short stories being sold and being made into films. It was this big thing, and a lot of those short stories were being pulled off of Reddit. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, there's a pretty famous Reddit, No Sleep, which are like horror stories, but they're supposed to be very believable.
Ooh,
And so Hollywood was, searching through that and pulling some of these stories and doing deals because they were like really great stories. Uh,
wow.
so I kind of paid attention to that, and so I was like, okay, look, which way the wind's blowing. It looks like, you know, uh, short stories might be another way of getting your films produced. Because look, a screenplay, so people know, when you write a screenplay, it's about 90 to 120 pages. It's about 20,000 words. If you're going to read it, it's going to take you about the same amount of time as it takes to watch a film. So it's going to take about 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Mm.
For Hollywood, a short story is probably maybe a third of that, or half, or maybe even less. So wait, I could read something, take less time, and figure out that I want to make a movie out of this rather than the 2 hours for a screenplay. So they started again looking at these short stories, and so again I sort of said, hey, let me try that, and I started writing some stories and posting them to Reddit, to the No Sleep, and they did kind of well. I didn't do many, like I think maybe 3 or 4. Then I started getting contacted by podcasts. who wanted the stories, and they pay for them, and so that started happening. And then the writer strike hit. This was last May, and I had a number of short stories. I had, again, just like with the screenwriting, I had all this time on my hands because the screenwriting part of my life had got closed. And so I started writing short story after short story after short story. And before you knew it, I had enough for 3 short story collections, 3 books. And I released my first one last November called Dread.
Yes. Oh, I'm
Yeah.
going to throw up that cover here in a second. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. And Dread was kind of themed a little in that it looked at a lot of sort of like horror through the natural world.
Yes.
As a natural filmmaker, history filmmaker. So there were a lot of stories that were kind of in that world in terms of wildlife, the outdoors. There you go. That's Dread. Yeah.
Gorgeous cover.
And it did really well. I mean, it was released. It was a #1 bestseller. It was #1 horror anthologies for a while. It's still up there on the charts, and it's sort of like, hey, it did well. Boom, like I said, sort of like in that sort of, hey, every 3 months or 4 months, released the next one, which was called Creep. And same thing. You start to build an audience. People start looking for your work, and boom, same thing. It went to #1 on horror anthologies.
That must feel incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to wake up and look at. Thanks again for putting it up there. To look it up, and you go to Amazon, and there it is on #1 for new releases. It's sort of, it kind of feels cool.
Yeah, come on, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so Creep came out, and again, that same sort of like, hey, get another one out there. People want it. And then Cursed was my 3rd short story collection. And what happened was with Cursed, thanks again, boom, there it is. There were a couple longer stories on Cursed. There's 18 stories, but 2 of them are around 10,000 words, which are fairly long short stories. And I like that. For some reason, I kind of enjoyed that. So when I was putting Curse together, which was during the winter, I had an idea for a novel, and I said, hey, can I do that? Because it's about the same amount of words and pages as my story collections, which are about 65,000 words, about 230, 40 pages, but it's one story. And so I started working on it, and I really enjoyed it. I write in a style that's kind of really easy to read. It's like a screenplay. It plays out like a movie. It's fast reading. It's not a lot of thick, heavy pages.
Absolutely.
So I put out my first novel called The Visitor. It just came out last Friday. It just came out. And it's kind of moving up the charts. As of today, it's like #10 on new releases. And this is for horror suspense, so I'm up against some big named authors there.
They got there. That my wife reads Frida McFadden. She did what you're doing, man, and she sells crazy amounts of books.
Yeah, and so thanks again for putting it up there. So that's The Visitor, and it says there at the top, a woman, a cabin, a dog, and the visitor. So it's got kind of that sort of alone in a cabin vibe, and what's knocking on that door, and so forth.
Snow is my thing. If I see snow, if I know the snow's in the book, I don't care what genre it is. I'm just like, it's cozy.
Yeah.
I grew up in northern Michigan, between northern Michigan and I mean, New York. Of course, you know what snow is.
Yeah, I'm familiar with snow. Yeah.
It is just something as a child that is one of the most nostalgic things for me. So when I read a snow scene, or if a book just takes place and you're just all in a blizzard, what have you, it is the best.
Yeah, look, for people who are in the southern part, and don't understand, snow, there's this kind of magical and fearful parts of it, because it's sort of like, it's beautiful, it's coming down, and there's the sound of it. And there's also what I love more than anything is at night after snow, and people don't realize this. And once the storm passes and the moon comes out, how bright it is. This kind of bluish brightness that you could almost read a newspaper because of the reflection off the snow.
You're bringing it back.
This deadening of sound, and I kind of include that in the book, it, but it's also creepy. It's sort of like everything's covered, everything's white. It's sort of, and it's a magical sort of
It is.
moment.
I had to throw his comment up. My dad, that's my pops. He grew up in northern Michigan. So spending that time up there, when I had, as a little guy, as a young man, and then getting that experience was, I'm very grateful for it. So, and then my other half, TBR is growing. I knew it would be. She's a huge horror, suspense, murder, mystery type of reader, and I get those type of suggestions from her. That's my wife. So she's excited to dive in.
Uh-huh.
I love hearing again those foundational moments. Kind of that system, that timeline of you doing what you're wanting to do. You did short stories, which I had no idea that I loved as much as I do, because the way that you write, and I haven't read a lot of short stories, but it's a quick punch to the throat is kind of what I like to say. But when I read yours, it's not the same as a couple other short story authors that I've read. I can put myself in any one of your characters' shoes, and it tells a story, but also gives a lesson, which I think is some of the finest writing. If you can take a lesson and put that in your real life, it's really valuable to me. So I just wanted to thank you again for that experience, man. That was incredible.
Hey, look, first of all, I have to thank you, because anytime anybody reads my words and takes the time, I'm always sort of like blown away. And thanks for noticing my writing. I try to really, whether it's a short story or the novels, I really try to make the character stand out, that you kind of find something that you connect with the character in that story.
Yeah, I was talking last night to Shelley Campbell, and she's a dark fantasy sci-fi writer. And what you just said is so important, because, excuse me, one of the things that starting her book captured me right away was a young man and his mother's relationship, and how it was kind of not right. She was very awful to him, blamed him for a lot of things, and I instantly was just attracted to that son, that character. And it's because you start to gain a relationship with someone. You put yourself in their shoes. You put them through a real life situation that is very possible. And then the rest of the story, you're on his side. So the psychology of making a character empathetic is so incredibly important to me. And I had no idea until she kind of told me what she did there. It's aspects like that when I read an author's writing that I wasn't necessarily thinking in the moment, but come to realize later, that I want to use in my own writing. Did you take lessons from anybody through other books, I guess? So like Stephen King, or who are some of your favorite authors that you would say have a hand in the way that you write?
Look, I go by the old Picasso axiom, where it's sort of good artists borrow, great artists steal. Uh, everything I read, I go, ooh, wait, what if I did something like, I'm not plagiarizing.
No,
I'm not,
no.
not stealing their words, but the way they turned a phrase, or they did something here, or the way they wrote that, or wow, look, they're breaking here and doing this here, and so I do that all the time. I'm always trying to sort of like see what's working in other people's writings, and how can I, why can't I do that? Wait, how can
Well,
I do it's sort
if
of
I sat one time and like wanted to the next words I'm going to write is going to be an original thought. That don't exist. It just, I think any writer, and this is the only experience I guess I can speak on as far as a writer. I love reading and I'm good at reading. I enjoy reading. I do it every day, but writing is something that I want to do. And the little bit of experience that I do have is trying to have that original idea. And I'm always intimidated to ask, because I feel like people may have a different opinion, and that doesn't scare me, but like maybe somebody feels very passionate about this, but to me, I don't think there's an original idea. There's been so many billions of people and ideas, and they have written them down. What's your take on that?
Uh, it's true to a certain aspect. It's sort of like, uh, there are no new ideas, but every once in a while you see something, you go like, well, I hadn't seen that before, or
Yeah.
oh, I haven't heard that before,
Yeah.
and so I think it's a 50-50 thing. It's sort of, because look, if that was the case, like, what about music? There's only a certain amount
Mm.
of notes. People have been playing music for centuries and so forth, but somebody always figures out how to put those notes together in a new way, and next thing you know, you're whistling a new tune and singing a new song,
You
and
may
so
have just convinced me. I had
yeah,
never thought about the
us.
music side.
Yeah, up to us, because words and notes and music, they're similar. I mean, you're pulling, the notes are words, and you're putting them together and putting them in an order that hasn't been done before. And that
Ah,
song tells this story, and your words are telling that story.
and this is the beautiful part of being honest. Come on, people. Being honest is look. I think that is a wonderful uh, kind of thought to kind of dive into. I could probably go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to investigate and kind of take that as the foundation for that question, because I think it's very valid and it's one I have not thought about. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, no, always challenge yourself. Always,
I
go the hard route. Don't go the.
and I think that being uncomfortable too, and it's almost a cliche to say anymore, but it's true. There's a reason people say it. It's if you make yourself uncomfortable, you really do grow.
Yeah,
And if you can be disciplined enough to consistently put yourself in I don't know if it's putting yourself in situations, maybe doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. If you're like, I'm tired, I don't want to take the trash out. Take the trash out. If a million different other options, but for me, I remember going through those things as a young man, playing sports, and you played sports, so I know you know what I'm saying. And it was the coach that made me, right.
yeah.
And then after so long, you kind of just do it yourself. But it's this natural progression to uh, further intellect. I don't know, furthering your character, really.
Hey, look, one of the biggest things anybody can do, and to really help them, look, not to get deep or anything, but it's self motivation. It's
That's
forcing
hard.
yourself to challenge yourself, and
Mm.
because you don't have that coach, yelling at you. You don't have that person encouraging you. So you have to learn how to encourage yourself, how to motivate yourself, how to push yourself. And once you're able to do that, you'll see changes.
Ooh.
Again, your coach was pushing you to go further, jump farther, train harder. Well, that coach is no longer in your ear. It's up to you now. And once you master that, good things will happen.
Ooh, I love that point too, because you're right. It's easy when a coach is yelling at you. And I thought it was hard then. But what's hard is living your own life. Obviously, there's no coaches at 35. I mean, maybe sometimes depending on your life choices and what you
Right.
do
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
hobbies. But yes, I love that point.
Well, it's so you're at work and your boss is your motivator. He or she is pushing you to do this or that or that. Well, who's the employee that really shines? It's the self motivator. It's the one who doesn't need the boss, pushing them and yelling at him. It's the one who's able to do it without the boss always in their ear. So
Yes.
that's why I'm saying it's an important thing. So with my writing and so forth, every time, like whether it was the screenplays or the writing the short stories or the novels, it was my own self motivation that got me to those spots.
That has to be some of the finest of the human condition and the human emotions. It's time where you push yourself to do something and something came to fruition. Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, what how did you find your prose writing style? Because what a unique point of view you have. Was it kind of just trial and error? Did you start off as what do you do now, as a pantser, an outliner? And then also, how did that start?
Yeah. I'm a pantser, definitely. And for those people who don't know, an outliner, a pantser. So outliner is somebody who really takes a story and outlines every little moment that's going to happen in that story. A pantser is short for seat of the pantser, meaning you're just sitting in front of your computer and just typing away. And just writing in the moment. So I'm a write in the moment type of person. Look, I might have an idea of, hey, this is where I'm going to start it. This is where I'm going to end it. But I just write with a blank page. And my
Wow.
style kind of think comes out of my documentary stage where it's sort of like very sort of matter of fact. I don't try to like overpower you with prose. I don't get very purpley. I'm not trying to impress you.
Yes.
I'm not trying to tell you about the glint on the knife with the little dust particles flashing in the air. And I might do moments of that, but
You do.
oh, I'm just trying to paint this visual picture. I want you to read it and you be in that spot. I want you to, and so I write, like I said, in a very sort of filmic, cinematic way where you feel like as you're reading it, you're watching it in your head. So if you're wondering what my style is, that's how it is. It's written in a very sort of like cinematic style.
Which I have to say makes the dialogue not only just like very digestible, it's not something you're going to struggle with reading. You get very vivid. I got very vivid pictures in my head. My imagination was, I feel, spot on for the book. And the book I'm speaking of is the first one. And I just
Right. Yeah.
The short story collection.
Yeah.
That was the first one I read of yours.
First one. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I got out of that again was the dialogue was excellent, and the situations that you see characters in those short stories. I feel like a lot of people, and I'm not going to say everyone because I can't speak for everyone, but I think a lot of people can put themselves in those character situations. Whether they would make the same decisions, obviously that's going to be different for each person. But I personally found it to be very relatable. I guess that's what I'm going for.
Yeah, and thanks, because I try not to write outlandish stuff. I try to write stuff that is very plausible. You don't read it,
Like
go
mistakes
like, oh,
from the past.
yeah. I try to write plausible stuff. Also, when I write my dialogue, I write it very natural. I put in pauses. I put in what,
Yep.
I try to write the way, which is again that's kind of screenwriting feeling, where you try to write realistic dialogue and write the way people talk. And so I think that might come through my writing as well.
I would never naturally notice that because this is the first time I ever kind of get the screenwriter side of things. And I'm thankful for it because I think that's an incredible. I had really never thought of the writing side of movies. I don't know why, because I mean, that's inevitable. Um, so to learn, kind of what you've done in the past, what you do, and how it kind of translates into the work that you're doing with the books and publishing, it's very fascinating. What are you working on at the moment? Are you are you deep inside another project?
Yeah, so I'm working. I have a couple films that are kind of moving into pre-production, and
All
I'll let you
right.
know what announced. I'll let you know.
Mhm.
I'll send you the links and so forth. But there are two films right now that are in pre-production, which I think are probably right up your alley of things you'd enjoy. And then
Oh.
yeah, I'll let you know. And then so that novel you put up, The Visitor, before, so that's
Mhm.
it's part of a series of novels. Thanks again.
Mhm.
And it's part of what's called Houses of Horror. So the first one is The Visitor, the second one is The Crone, and the third one is The Apartment. And what they are, there's not a single character that takes us through it, but it's looking at, so The Visitor takes place in a cabin, and The Crone is somebody's house. There are these house flippers working on a house renovation, and The Apartment takes place in an apartment. And it's the idea that we live in our homes. We think we're safe. It's our dwelling. It's
Mm.
our abode. It's sort of like where we dwell and go home at night and think we're like everything's positive and perfect. And it's, in my world, it's where the scariest and most terrifying things take place. So that's, I'm working on the next two books, The Crone and The Apartment That Follows the Visitor, and it's part of the Houses of Horror series. They're all available. The Visitor is available to buy now, and The Crone and The Apartment are pre-order if you'd like to do that.
Yeah, guys, I've covered all of those links in the description below. I took the work from you. You guys just click on them links. It's super easy. It'll take you right to his page and just check out. He's got a lot of books up there right now for order and then pre-order. And by the way, of course, I love doing this, man, because it's funny how you find things in life that you had no idea you weren't looking for, and it just falls in your lap. It's talking to guys like you, man. I was not a reader, man. It's just crazy how things kind of happen in life, and then to find that reading literature and wanting to write is such a burning desire of mine now. To hear all of these different points of view, aspects, different ways of getting into writing prose, it's truly fascinating. I'm excited for what's to come. I haven't read everything that you've put out yet, so I'm excited for what is still. And I cannot wait to get to those. David, I have to throw up a couple comments real quick. Dave, what's going on, man? He's got a lot of kids, so I know he struggled to get here. Thank you for popping in, brother. My bearded brother.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Awesome. I haven't asked this question in a while. I knew I wanted to ask you.
Shoot.
I used to ask people, and I got a lot of mixed answers. Who is somebody or a few, it doesn't matter how many, whoever you want to say, that you would recommend I talk to? And again, what I'm after is knowledge, writing knowledge, whether it's an editor, a cover artist, it doesn't matter. Somebody that you find very fascinating or intelligent that you would recommend I interview.
Wow, that's a good one. I'm going to have to think. I might have to get back to you on that.
That's okay. Yes, absolutely. I would love that.
That's a good one because, yeah, I mean, I've worked with so many editors of my films over the years, and other writers and cinematographers who put the pictures to my films together. There's so many.
Oh yeah, you've got a list, dude.
Yeah, I have such a huge list. I mean, I will have to. I'm not trying to cop out, but I'll have to get back to you on that one.
That's a hard one. So I have to say, Renegade, what's up, dude? I'm so glad you're here, man. I've reached out to Felix. He's a great dude, but let's be honest, this guy is so. He got to the point where it's like, man, I love what you're doing, this and that, but I have no time, dude. Like, he's being asked to do covers so often that he just doesn't have time. He said that he'll hit me up when he has the time because he wants to be on the show. So, we're waiting, and I think it'll be excellent when he finally does. So I agree.
Talking about somebody who does book covers?
Yeah. Felix Ortiz is like the gangster of book covers. If I had somebody in front of me, he's on the other shelf.
Yeah.
But he has a lot of covers on my shelves.
I hope to be known as the gangster of novels one day.
Yes. That's that's kind of like my phrase. I had no idea that I had a phrase, but if somebody kind of impresses me, I call them the gangster of whatever they're doing. I don't know, but I think it's so fascinating, kind of meeting all these people that have these specific kind of jobs that are very crucial to publishing a book. So I'm excited for you to get back to me with that.
Yeah, definitely.
Let me look at something really, really quick. I exited my screen. Ooh. What are you reading right now? Are you reading anything?
I just finished reading Rick Rubin's book. Rick Rubin's the famous producer, Beastie Boys, Jay-Z, and he has a great,
the infinitely wisdom beard.
Yeah, the beard that's longer than Gandalf's.
Yeah,
and he wrote a great book on creativity, a creative way, and so I just finished that, and I'd recommend that to everybody.
What's your favorite horror book of all time? Are you a big reader of horror?
Let's see. That's a good one.
Or
Uh,
one of your favorites. It doesn't have to be your favorite, obvious. I know it's a hard question.
let's see. I mean, look, I really loved Stephen King's It. I had a problem with the way it ended, which I think a lot of people did.
I've
But
heard that.
up until the last 20 pages, I was I was damn. I thought it was perfect.
That's excellent. So, a horror author that my wife loves is Frida McFadden, and for some reason, it's a predominantly female read author.
Uh huh.
There's a lot of men too, but the way she goes through these books, I'm jealous. She
No.
just, I mean, 400 pages in like 3 days. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah. No. It's I like Darcy Coates. She's a female
Ooh,
horror writer.
Darcy
So
Coates.
Darcy Coates, I really enjoy. And the thing is that people don't realize, or maybe they do, and I'm just being stupid, is how much women are horror aficionados. They
They
love
are.
horror. I mean, you go on Instagram and all the horror sort of like book Instagrammers and people who read, but they're all women. They love horror, and
Don't piss your wife off, guys.
yeah, no. They really love horror and horror novels and stuff. And to be honest, a lot of my stories have female protagonists, and in fact, in The Visitor, the main character is a woman.
How back kind of expanding on that real quick, was that hard to kind of take a female's perspective, or what did you do to prepare for that?
No, look, I'm one of the people that I think anybody can write anything and write any perspective and so forth. It's sort of, it's, if you're empathetic and you have feelings and you understand the human condition, we're all the same. I mean,
I love that.
it's
Yes, there's so many things tearing us apart anymore.
yeah,
That look, there are differences, and we embrace those. There are necessary differences.
yes,
But we are all human. We have a
Yep.
Yes, man. I love that.
Yeah, look, through my job, I've traveled literally all over the world. There's not too many places I haven't been. I've been to every continent except Antarctica, and been in villages in the middle of,
I've seen, man. I looked up your pictures earlier,
yeah,
and there was like you with this big camera in the middle of, I would guess, an African tribe.
that was actually in Papua New Guinea, in the highlands of Papua.
I said New Guinea to my wife, dude. I was like,
Yeah.
he's in New Guinea. I should have said that.
And you know what everybody wants? They want their children to be happy, and they want a family, and they want to just live and laugh and enjoy life. I mean, whether I'm in that village in Papua New Guinea or in the middle of Paris or wherever, that's kind of what everybody wants. And
That's beautiful.
yeah, and it's sort of, so to write a woman or this perspective or that perspective, or somebody who's gay or this or that, as long as I'm being a human being, I can write.
Empathy, man.
Yeah.
From what I learned, and again, I'm not great at many things except playing the drums and relating to people. And when I relate to people, like you said, it doesn't matter what your sexual preference is, what the skin color is of you. If I have that foundation of respect and empathy, and you do too, this opposite person, man, it's just going to be successful. And I truly believe that.
Best friends. You'll be best friends.
Our differences do not keep us apart. They bring us together. We accept things. I totally believe that. And I think that needs to happen more.
Yeah, no, look, you can disagree on things, but that doesn't mean you can't be friends. I mean,
yes.
And it's just sort of like, not to get, very deep here, but you're right. There's more things that we have in common than differences. And it's just accepting that there are differences, and that's fine.
It is. Thank you for
so I have
touching
to
on
ask
that.
you, so who's the best drummer?
Oh, it's a toss-up between the classic, Neil Peart from Rush, or Chris Adler from Lamb of God. If anybody, I know, even if you're not a fan of metal, vocals are a little bit screamy. I'm not a huge fan of the vocals, but that guy is a human metronome. Watch him, Chris Adler, Adler. Watch him on YouTube. Watch him play the drums, and you will agree with me. This guy does not miss a beat. Portnoy's good. Yeah, Portnoy's really good. He's got the biggest drum set I've probably ever seen. Him and Neil Peart. I think like Portnoy is the modern child of Neil Peart. That's what I would say. Look, we got that sparked off a little bit of a debate.
Yeah, of
Um,
course. You know.
but I tell you, I truly enjoy the mathematics in my mind about drumming. There's just it came natural to me. I don't have to read music. If I can hear a song, I just kind of naturally, go with it and make something completely different than what's mainstream with it.
Yeah,
And
but
it was the
that's
first.
where you could take your drumming and help that with your writing, because it's the same sort of like putting out notes, putting out words, putting out rhythms. Sentences and writing should be a rhythm. It shouldn't just be one thing. It shouldn't just be one note. It shouldn't just be one sentence length. You
Ooh,
need to mix it up and put things different. So if your drumming is a certain style, you can channel some of that creativity into your writing.
I like that too because there's a lot of non-traditional ways of percussion that are very audibly satisfying and popular in today's music. So kind of throwing in a twist and taking that mindset could definitely maybe even spark me to change something in my writing to where it becomes a little more satisfying.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very excited to kind of take that point of view along with the human condition you spoke of about all across the world. We have a lot of the same views. So,
Oh yeah.
man, this definitely won't be our last time, at least as long as you're okay with it, having you on the channel, because I really didn't know how to approach the interview based on what you do, because it's so inspiring to me. And I know that may sound weird, but you've been there and you've done that in a lot of different ways. A lot of ways that I truly look up to and had no idea that you did until we started talking. But really respect it, man. And nature, it just speaks to me in so many ways. So to bring your experience from that into a passion of yours that is writing, and then to be continuing that journey, I'm there for it. I'm going to be there for it the whole way, man.
Well, again, if you'd have me, I'd love to talk to you again. This was great. It was a great conversation. It's like we were just sort of like in a bar, just chatting. So
Yes,
perfect.
that's what I'm aiming for. This isn't like don't be nervous. Like I've had nervous people on the channel, and that's okay. But at the same time, we're all relating. We're all talking about the same thing that we all love. We just all come from a different place, and we all meet in the middle. So,
Yeah.
man, thank you so much for letting me borrow you for a little bit. I'm gonna
No
go
worries,
kiss
man.
the missus, kiss the baby,
Yeah.
and then read a little bit. Yes, I'm gonna dive into some books. Hopefully, get about an hour in. Usually, I don't make it an hour. I'm like, but I'm hoping for tonight. So, all of you guys that were here live, Pops, thanks for popping in, man. He's at work. He's working on airplanes, sheet metal, and so many of you other people driving and keeping up with the chat. You guys are awesome. I look forward to it every time that I'm on. Kevin Bachar, man, thank you so much. Guys, go check out the links below. I've got all you need right below. You won't have to search for nothing, anything, his books and his website, all that. So,
And thank you, Matt, and thank you to all the viewers and listeners. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Have a great rest of the summer.
oh, look at that, man. I have the nice guests on. Check that out. All right, you guys that are going to catch it on replay as well. Thank you as well. Hey, like, share, subscribe. It helps me, sure. But it's going to help Kevin. It's going to help all the other authors as well, because people are going to get the message, the covers on their face, this and that. It does a world of good. So thank you. And we will see you, I believe, in 2 days. I'll let you guys know on Twitter and the other socials. Until then, have a wonderful night.